Greetings. This is TimeRider at Chapter 4. What you're looking at here is the Matchbox number 59C Fire Chief's car. Yes, for those of you that watch, this is the casting I sent to Marty, which he spoke of in his recent mail call video. He called it a police chief's car. What can I say? He's an Aussie. Here in Minnesota, it's snowing like mad today. I think we got about 8 inches or a little over 20 centimeters for the rest of you folks. Fortunately, it's a light and fluffy snow, which is not so good for snowmen, but great for shoveling snow. Anyway, the 55C and 59C are essentially the same casting, different colors of course, but each is a 1965 Ford Galaxie 500. It was the second fire chief's car produced by Lesney and entered production in 1966 with hard black plastic wheels. It was converted to Superfast in 1970 and deleted the following year, only to be replaced by the 59D, a Mercury, which was produced by Lesney right up until their bankruptcy in 1982. Like the 55C, which had a red beacon and was valuable when found with a blue one, this one comes with a blue beacon, but rare versions can be found with a red beacon. So this one is mine, and I actually paid about $7 for this one on a purchase I made on eBay. It's got a small crack in the windshield in the lower left side. The paint, of course, is fairly chipped up, faded and dull in other areas. And the little fire chief is missing. But other than that, the chassis seemed a little corroded but straight, and the body was also a little corroded but straight. It looked like a pretty good candidate for restoration. So I went ahead and ordered some decals from Black Square in England, and they arrived, and so I'm ready to put this thing back into good order. So let's get started. Pretty standard for Lesney, although they do use many different methods of holding these chassis onto their castings. This one just had a post on the front and a post on the back, so it was just a matter of drilling these two posts out. And then I had to remove the windshield, which was held on by a small post. Pretty easy. Just have to be careful because, of course, you don't want to drill through the roof of the model. Don't want to crack it either, so I'm not pushing too terribly hard. Oh, there it comes. And this looked like Citrus Stripper would probably work pretty well. A little shameless advertising for eBay, for which I received no compensation. As I said, I don't subscribe to the National Enquirer. Just a liberal coating of it was all it took. And now a little bath action in some hot soapy water to get the red paint off of the car. And we'll follow up the bath with some fine cleaning using that dastardly wire brush and toothpicks and safety pins and anything else that I need to get all the paint off of it. It was a pretty nice casting. I also discovered a new super secret reason to wait until after I remove the paint to drill and tap the post holes. Actually, that's not true. I did it afterwards because it really doesn't matter, and this is just when it occurred to me to do it. Now that the car is prepared for reassembly, it's time to start paint. A coat of Tamiya light gray primer. I had purchased a selection of Testor's enamel paint. Usually I shoot acrylic, partly because the cleanup is so much easier. You know, when you're shooting with enamel, you really need to clean your airbrush with mineral spirits, and I don't know, it just seems like it's harder to clean. But the enamel is much more durable, and I liked the red. It looked like it was a very bright red, and while it might not look like it at this point in time when I'm putting on a tack coat, a little bit later on when it was dry, I thought that it really popped nicely. It also lays on really, really well. If it wasn't for the cleanup, I'd probably use enamel paints exclusively. Usually when I shoot enamel, I let it cure for a couple of days before I start handling it, and that gives me some time to work on other aspects of the casting. Here the chassis itself was covered with a fine dusty corrosion, which is very common on these unpainted Matchbox chassis. So here I am, I'm cleaning things up a little bit. The bumper, the grill, the rear bumper, trying to go over the bottom really well to get the corrosion off of the bottom. I've said before in previous videos, I don't generally do a great deal with the chassis. This one I am clean, but I do usually clean them up a bit, so that's what I'm doing here, is just cleaning it up. I had opted not to remove the wheels. I mean, why? It's a pain in the ass to take them off, and it's a pain in the ass to put them back on. So if you don't have to remove them because they're damaged or cracked, if all they are is just dirty, you're better off just cleaning them up. And then what I'm doing here is just applying a little bit of tire wash to try to restore them to a decent condition so they'll look good on the other end of the model. Here I am kind of sopping up some extra tire wash with a cotton bud, and you know, I can do all 4 tires with a fine brush and get as good a result as if I took them apart. Kind of tough to see here. It's very small, but that's the beacon, which had some scratches. They always seem to get them, you know, where the roof rubs against the beacon itself, and then usually on the top if they aren't just outright destroyed. So that's some 2500 grit sandpaper and water, and I'm just wet sanding it, trying to get it back into, you know, decent condition. The top on this one was pretty scuffed up, so I probably could have started with a little bit coarser sandpaper and got through it quicker, but I would have ended up working my way down to this anyway. And then that's a container of Pledge Revive It, an acrylic floor product, and I'm just going to dip it, wick a little bit of it off the edge, and find a place to set it down where it'll dry. Next up is the windshield. which I also wet sanded with 2500 grit sandpaper. It had a crack in it, and there wasn't anything that I could do about the crack. I guess about all I could hope is that the crack wouldn't get any worse. And just kind of clean it off, take a look at where I'm at. It's fairly scratched at this point. So I followed it up with the Novus products that I use to help remove fine scratches from the plastic. And then after I was done with this, I didn't video it, but I did dip it into the pledge and then covered it and set it aside for a time to let the pledge dry. I have to apologize. It was really late at night when I put these decals on once the enamel had cured. And then I used a decal setting solution. These were decals I bought from Black Square in the UK. And now it's time to put some coats of clear coat on the car. All in, I wound up putting a couple of light coats and a couple of heavy coats. I think you'll see that red has really popped now that it's dry. I think it wound up looking really good, and you'll see that in the end result. I had to clean the interior a little bit, although not too much. And then I needed to get on to the Matchboximus habeas corpus, because I had the body. I had purchased another Matchbox that had a little guy jammed into the front seat that I knew didn't belong there, and I pretty much save everything. And the only other figure that I had was a horse, and I suppose I could have cut the horse's ass off, because I don't know, where I work there was always some angst between the fire department and the police department. Maybe it's a universal thing. But anyway, I stuck some Anabond on his backside and put him into the driver's seat, and actually add a little drop of super glue over on the side once he was locked into place, and so the fire chief is back in town. So here I am, I have all the pieces and I'm ready to assemble. And I'll take the little beacon if I can ever get a hold of it, put it in the hole, take our windshield, put a little rubberized adhesive onto it, in case I ever have to take it back out. And we'll press that into place. With a Q-tip or a cotton bud or whatever you want to call it. And then we'll take our interior with our our fire chief, and we'll put that in there. And that's a little suspension piece that I did straighten with a little bit of heat. I probably ought to show that more. It's not a big deal. You just put it in boiling water for 15 or 20 seconds, and then you pull it out and you flex it in the opposite direction of the, because it's usually got a bias and you want it flat, so you fold it like in the opposite direction while you're running cool water over it. Anyway, snap the chassis on and put in a couple of uncoordinated button screws, because color coordination on the button screws is a Marty thing, and I certainly wouldn't want anybody to accuse me of riding his coattails. Although I did send him one of these, and I'm understandably curious how it turns out, and I sent it to him with a challenge that he include a light like he did in the 29C pumper that he built. So I'm really curious to see how that turns out and if he has the ability to do it. That being said, it's all she wrote, so let's go back and take a look at where we wound up. Or where we started, I'm sorry. So here it is with the chipped and faded paint and corroded chassis and dirty wheels and scuffed up beacon and scratched up glass and fire chief in absentia. It was a sad state of affairs. I really like this casting, though, maybe because it was the kind of car that I probably would have driven when I first got my driver's license. In fact, I had a buddy who owned two of these, one right after another. And they were fast and kind of stylish for the day. But anyway, enough of my banter. Let's take a look at where it wound up. So there you go, everybody. The Matchbox 59C Fire Chief's car. I hope you fire guys out there appreciate that I gave this as much love as I did the police car, and I think it turned out every bit as well. This is TimeRider at Chapter 4, and I'll leave the light on for you. Please subscribe and share with your friends if you can. Take care and be safe. I have to go shovel some snow.